Hello, I'm Senator Rosa Franklin, representing the 29th Legislative District. I usually send newsletters to 29th District constituents recapping the legislative session. However, this year I'm suspending my mailing in order to help reduce state spending. Instead, I am using a series of videos to recap the 2009 legislative session in several separate segments. Today, I would like to talk about the issue that loomed largest over the entire session, the recession and the severe budget cuts we had to make. Normally, legislators enter into the session looking for ways to improve life for people across the state. This year, facing record revenue shortfalls, we cut deeply into public services. We had to search for solutions that did the least harm, yet keep the safety net from completely unraveling. Needless to say, it was somewhat difficult in the worst economic downturn since I have been in office, and this is my third. The loss of revenues amounted to nearly $9 billion, or fully 1/4 of the budget. But that doesn't tell the full story. A little more than half the overall budget consists of services that are constitutionally protected or debt service that must be paid. For instance, K-12 education. That meant services in the remainder of the budget face cuts of more than half, or even complete elimination. Imagine cutting health care for our most vulnerable citizens by more than 1/2, or cutting funding to state colleges in their entirety. Those were the kinds of choices we faced, tough ones indeed. Fortunately, we received some assistance from that other Washington. President Obama's stimulus plan reduced our shortfall by nearly $3 billion. We made up for another $1.5 billion through bonds and other fiscal transfers. And we eliminated another $500 million by freezing state hiring and other spending back in January when the shortfall became very obvious. That still left us with about $4 billion to cut from state programs. The search for scarce dollars pitted deserving groups against each other. There were no easy answers. The pain was shared by all. Everyone's expectations were reduced. Of course, that didn't make us happy. The question was how much? The only thing everyone agrees on is that this is a budget that reflects an attempt to control the bleeding, treat the wounds, and work to help turn the economy around, putting people to work. I wish we could have done things differently. For many years, based on recommendations from the Gates Commission, I have proposed ways that would make our system of taxation more fair and less vulnerable to economic downturns. If these recommendations had been put in place a few years ago, our state economy would be in far better shape today to ride out the deep recession in a less painful way. Among other things, my proposal for reforming our tax structure would have lowered sales and property tax, created a progressive income tax, and required a 2/3 vote by both the public and the legislature to change tax rates in the future. Unfortunately, the term income tax has become so demonized that a major barrier has been getting a public dialogue, unfettered and engaged at the legislative level, and then to communities across the state, led by community groups for their input. It's tragic because the vast majority of Washingtonians would benefit from learning about the pros and cons of our current system. But many people don't realize that because they have been told for years that our system of taxation is okay, that we do not have a problem other than that the legislators want more of your money. We certainly will continue our ways if Washingtonians are unwilling to engage in meaningful discussions about our outdated tax system. I will continue to work to open this dialogue. For the sake of our state and our people, we need to move to a system that will enable us to better withstand cyclical downturns, compete in the global economy, and which is more fair and equitable. But for now, in this difficult year, our only option was to cut public services to thousands of residents and communities across our state. In spite of it all, we managed to make some positive changes in public policy. Our strategy was threefold: identify and spare the people least able to withstand cuts in services and basic programs, avoid counterproductive cuts that might save money in the short term but lead to greater costs in the long term, and be as innovative as possible in finding ways to cut spending that minimize cuts in services. I will continue to press for an income tax restructure when I am in the legislature and when I am no longer in the legislature. It's that important. In my next segment on this year's legislative session, I will focus on the specific impacts to our 29th legislative district. Thank you.